Hi, everyone. This is Dawn Richard, also known as The Awakening with Dawn, and this is the Wake Up to Real Love podcast, where we share stories of struggles and triumphs in love, sex, and relationships, along with expert advice to create more conscious connections. And I am so thrilled today to have my beautiful soul sister, Helen Glover, with me all the way from Australia.
Hi, Dawn.
Hi, Helen. Helen is the creator of the podcast called The Modern Masculine. She is a 47-year-old single mom of 4. Oh my gosh, I stopped at 3. How do you do 4? Helen's had experience from interior design to vocational coaching, through mentoring and public speaking on authenticity, and a stage show called, why don't you say the name, Helen, for us?
What happens if we never get our shit together?
I love that. All of these careers had one thing in common: beauty. From the beauty of a home to reflect the beauty of the soul living there, to the pure beauty of living your truth and owning your path. I am so happy that you're with me today. Welcome, Helen.
Pleasure. Such a pleasure.
So, because we have both experienced divorce, yeah. I want to ask you about your struggles in your past relationships. What have you learned? How have you grown? What kind of getting your shit together have you done? And what kind of shit have you lived through?
Yeah. Big question, darling.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. I think, and it's not just our relationships with men, is it? It's our relationships with parents that then lead to relationships with men, which lead to relationships with women who aren't necessarily the best people for us too.
Right.
I've definitely, I think all conflict starts with insecurity. The more insecure you are, and the more untrusting, or the more concerned you are about not being loved purely, the more we seem to put up, to fight with. And that's been my experience for sure. I know that relationships in my early 20s were volatile. I just was dealing with so much insecurity and difficulty in my own person that I was hard work, like I was, I brought an anger to the relationship, really, I think. And a disparity in what I was feeling for the person and in my behavior. They were quite different. And I didn't understand myself. I didn't understand my behavior. I'd be like, why did I say that? Or what was that even about? Like, it was.
So things would come out of you, and it was like you weren't even recognizing yourself.
Yeah. And it was just pure, uncontrolled emotion. It was that I was at that stage, when you're in your 20s and you go out into the world and you've been through some things that have caused, you to come from shaky ground, and you're finding it. And in that, you're not always in control of your own behavior. Your accountability's off, isn't it?
Right.
I think that comes with age, and a lot of us, we start our important relationships in our 20s.
Right.
Meet the guys who we have our babies with, from this really strange place of shaky ground where we're not quite sure about ourselves. I know for me, I let a lot of things go because I kind of had this, oh, wow, I'm just so lucky to have somebody who's going to love me because I'm not that great,
Wow.
And that's took some years to find that belief. But certainly I can own that now, and I definitely don't have it anymore.
Thank goodness.
but I did for a while there, where I
Yeah.
just kind of like, there's that, oh God, don't rock the boat, and so you end up, for me, I keep saying you, but I'm personally, um, I I was in situations, in friendships, and in my kind of spouse relationship where um, I certainly wasn't getting my needs met. And of course, then there'd be the spill of that where it would all kind of spill out in an argument that was, again, that unconscious emotion, because there was no genuinely showing up to yourself daily. So
Right.
there'd be the spill, you know
Right.
and like, you kind of put a little bit of water and a little bit of water and a little bit of water in a pot each day for a month or two, and then the next minute it spills all over the bench. So you know and
There's a
and
big
so
fat mess to clean up.
yeah, I certainly think that that's the way with communication. You have to kind of, water goes into the cup, and then you either drink it or throw it out. You can't put more water on top of old water. It gets over, it overflows. Yeah.
So
So
where
yeah,
where
I
do
think
you where
that,
do you think that the anger and the insecurity come from?
I think it comes from just lots of different life experiences and the echo chamber that we grow up in. We're in a world where emotions are suppressed, so the general way of dealing is to overflow. Generally, there's a lot of detachment, um, not a lot of ownership and awareness around our day-to-day behavior. And one of the definite things that I live by, absolutely, is I am the only person I can control.
Exactly.
And I,
Exactly.
yeah, and it's massive, right? So then I think, well, if I can actually show up with my behavior to the best of my ability, and my mantra is behave well in a bad situation, because I am all I have. So to hold dignity and grace within a difficult situation and be constantly aware of how you are reacting or behaving or showing up,
Uh-huh.
then it doesn't overflow. But I don't think many of us are doing that, and it certainly took me years and years and years to get to that too.
Right.
I grew up in a mining town in Yorkshire, and it's tough there. It's cold. It was the work's hard. People are. You've got to be streetwise. It's a tough neighborhood, and everybody there, absolutely, they say Yorkshire people are salt of the earth. They're grounded. They'll tell you how it is, but there's no messing. And
Right.
so you can see, I grew up during a stage where there was a miners' strike that went on upwards of 2 years, where people were fighting.
Wow.
It was massive. A lot
Wow.
of the children who I was friends with at school when I was 10, 11, 12, um, their dads were in fights with people who they'd been in alliances with for years, families who had, you know, been been mining and sharing this for years, and now they were fighting, and it was a lot of exposure to aggression and violence,
Yeah.
and so I think you just grow up not really knowing how to navigate your own feelings.
So did that experience make you tough? Like as sort of a protective mechanism because you saw all of that fighting going on around you? It's like, ooh, I don't want to be involved in that.
As a woman,
Yeah.
but not as a child. I was terrified as a child. I was pretty, um, I had that kind of real empathic kind of personality. So I really kind of absorbed a lot of it, and it frightened me. I looked down a lot.
Wow.
I just thought, I'll just stay right out of that. And I also felt nervous of having a voice. I felt nervous of speaking my truth and of saying what I thought, because I had a real belief that nobody really wanted to hear that, because it was coming from a young girl, you know, and yeah, yeah,
And you saw other people being having conflict because they were speaking their truth.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean, you know, what I know as an adult, you know, you look around and you think, wow, what a terrible thing to go through as a man, looking at going back to work to feed your family because there's no money and no food and no ability to pay bills, and you're the provider, and so you're wanting to go back to work, but that means kind of um, straying away from your whole community and doing the wrong thing, and people being furious with you, and you breaking picket lines, and
Right.
on a bus each day and going through a crowd of angry people spitting at the bus, and you know, I mean, wow, like what a terrible decision to make.
Right.
And I can't even imagine the situation that they were put in. Yeah, my heart goes out to them for that. But obviously, as a young girl, I didn't really, yeah, have that insight to that. I just was, you know, I just knew this was a tough situation.
So how did you approach your relationships
Yeah, well,
at the beginning?
I think I think I was just wandering around, um, a bit lost, really. Um, I don't know whether I had full access to my heart either.
Uh-huh.
So I don't think that I truly had the ability to love. Um, so, you know, you kind of go in and out of relationships for that kind of giggly feeling that you get as a girl without it being real love. You know, I don't think I did have real love for a long time. Um, yeah, I think, you know, I just ended up thinking, oh, yeah, I'm at that age. You have a boyfriend, and then you end up in a relationship, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
then you navigate it from there. And I just didn't really know what I was doing. It's like anything. It's like when you have a baby and you take it home and you go, what now, you know?
Exactly.
It's the
Like
same
everybody
thing.
says, oh, the pregnancy is the hardest. And you're like, no, it's getting home and going,
That's
now
right.
what?
Yeah. And it's the same, you know, when all of a sudden you're in a long-term relationship and you turn around one day and nobody's giving you a book for that either, you
Right.
know?
Right.
Yeah. Kind of like all of our relationships are like that. You know, we get given this new thing to look after. And unless we feed the right things into it, and unless we really sit with ourselves about what that person needs, be it a tiny baby or a relationship, it can't thrive, you know?
Right.
So,
Well,
yeah.
and I think that's the whole piece where you said you are the only person in control of you, and that
Mm,
how are you showing up in your relationship? Are you showing up as a person that helps nurture and care for the relationship, or are you showing up as the opposite?
mm, that's right. And it's like anything. I know when I had a baby, I had to really go, wow, what person do I want this little guy to see?
Yeah.
You know? And there was a lot of shaming in my behavior when I first had a baby, because I'd react to something and go, oh, like, I don't want my child to see this person. This is not
Right.
good enough. And it was a real kind of mirror. You know, I had to really hold up a mirror and really take on board who I wanted to be seen as by this amazing new person who I was going to be the apple of his eye because I'm his mom.
Right.
And um, and no matter what happens between the mother-child relationship, they will always look to you for that kind of security and for that knowing um, that they have either your approval or your backing, or look, this is how we do it because that's what mum did or said, you know. And you have this really sacred time when they're babies in order to create um, how they see you dealing with life. And
Right.
it was important for me to make sure that my relationship was was not going to be damaging, you know. So but I think what I did then is I ended up not saying anything, you know, kind of go,
Why?
come over here. Because then I had my daughter and I'd go, come over here, kids, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, because I do, I love Rudolf Steiner's work and how he talks about, you know, in the early years and, you know, you create, the world is a place of wonder, you
Right.
know. And so you're wanting to create the base belief system within them that the world is full of wonder.
Yeah.
And so you don't want them to experience all of the things that sure they're going to experience as they get into their teens. They can train in what it's really like kind of getting towards being an adult, but they certainly don't need to be rocked in their younger years. That's where we're wanting them to believe. We build the optimism. Yeah.
Right. See, like being able to see infinite possibilities that the world has to
Yeah.
offer.
And just that the world, not as the world is good, but also then as they get a bit older, that the world is beautiful.
Right.
So to see goodness in people when they enter the world and as they grow through these younger years, then to see the beauty in the everyday. And that is a really beautiful solid base to come from. So obviously our relationships have a huge bearing on that. So if the world is good, but mum and dad are at each other's throat, it's not good for that long, you know.
Right.
If the world is really beautiful out there, the trees and everything, but then when we get home, it kind of looks a bit ugly, you know. So I felt really huge responsibility, and so I was doing lots and lots and lots. I've been doing personal development work for 25 years. And I definitely had struggles with mental health. I would go in and out of feeling depressed and really going deeply into that and coming out with different emotions around it that I would then have to navigate within a relationship and within my parenting and within the fact that I was running my own business and all of these pressures, you know, that we have to show up to in our best way. So yeah, I think I got to a point in my relationship where I would take the kids to the wonder or to the good and just like put off the other stuff, you know.
Like
And
it's your escape.
yeah, I was just like, well, I don't want to do this in front of the kids, so we're
Uh-huh.
just not going to do it. And then of course it would boil over. But what I ended up doing is I took on the pressures of the family, and it was exhausting, you know. So
You want
but
to talk about that a little more?
well, like if my husband was failing at something, I'd go, okay, you know, and I'd positive it up and I'd be like, we're going to do this and we're going to do that and come on. And, you know, like, it's all right, we can do this. And then we'd have big things happen that were really quite traumatic. And, you know, I mean, my husband lost his business partner, kind of disappeared in the night with all of the money and
Wow.
walked. Yeah, and my daughter was 4 months old. And of course, as the provider and as the man holding the family together, you know, it's a big thing. And that really affected him. And yeah, then that caused a ripple effect through the family, of course. And I ended up going to work and working really, really hard in this office job to kind of make up for the money that was missing to save the house. And of course, I don't like that saying we lost the house. We didn't lose it. We had to sell it because we couldn't afford to live there anymore.
Right.
Not like it disappeared into Brigadoon or whatever. But yeah, it was really rough for
Yes.
all of us because we loved the house as well. It had views to the mountains, and you know, it was really quite special. And it's this huge grieving process where just even people coming to look at the house to buy it was this mix of devastation and fury, you know. And then, you know, all of the sadness and the grief that goes along with that. But I'm very like, you know, we're not going to lose this dream. We'll do this and we'll do that. But it just meant that I ran on empty, and eventually, you know, that does catch up with you. But I am that kind of person. That was nobody else's thing. That is my personality. But I think you end up in a relationship where you create that you're coping with everything,
Right.
and everybody else can just let go.
Right. Right. You hold all of the emotional space for everybody else, and no one's really holding any for you.
But as well, financially, I ended up, kind of going, okay, well, I'll run that as
Right.
well.
Right.
And then what I found in my relationship is that's where then he could take control back. By then, when he got back on his feet, there was this real kind of horrible toing and froing with finances, and then that kind of niddling voice where he could say quite abusive things to me about, well, you can't this and you can't that around money. So I started doubting that I was actually able to do it. But I
Right.
can see on reflection that as a man, he was trying to claim back
Right.
his ability to financially manage this family.
Right.
And I'd gone off and done it while he hadn't been able to do that. And instead of us both being at a stage in our development where we could have really owned that, hey, this is a struggle for me not being fully in control of our financial gain. This is a real struggle for me not being the full provider, and to see you in this strength. How it played out, where he was quite abusive and quite the saboteur in my business. And and then of course you feel like, wow, why would you do that? And oh my God, and it's hurtful. And
Do you think that that related to him not feeling like you really needed him?
I think it was more the fight with himself that he needed me. I think that it was a push pull. Like everything's this push pull, Like I think as I because at the same time I had stepped into my masculine, right?
Right.
So that's not ideal, And of course now in my 40s, that's my fight, is to get my feminine to be, more present than the masculine. I definitely need my masculine energy because I'm an action person. But I really try to acknowledge the fall back into feminine. I really have to kind of observe that in myself. Okay, what energy am I in? It's time to fall. It's time to fall. So
Do you feel like, though, people, depending on a particular circumstance or situation that they're in, they need more quote unquote feminine or masculine qualities, and so it should normally be sort of an ebb and flow of what particular emotions this situation calls for. And so, and when people aren't doing that, I think that that's when they have problems, because they're not owning both of those aspects of themselves.
yeah, sure. Absolutely. And that's the thing with relationships. Sometimes somebody's wearing the pants and the next year somebody else is. Like,
Right.
it's just the way it goes, right?
Right.
So we can't be caught up in that. If I go all into feminine and go, oh my God, you didn't like queen me this weekend and I didn't feel, like that's not going to work either.
Right.
As
Right.
a guy coming up and going, no, you need to stay in the home and I need to earn the money. That's, it's the extremes of anything where things go.
Right. Right.
So if we can sit solidly in the base of, hey, this is who I am and this is where I'm coming from. And I know that I've just behaved really badly about that. And this is the reason why. And that they can go, yeah, when you did that, it kind of like, you're taking my balls here, so that when they do feel that is overstepping, to be able to say and go, oh my God, yeah, totally, so that you can have this kind of open dialogue about when each one's going too far. Because once you do step into the pants, it's knowing when to then, put the dress back on. Because if you're having to run the business and run the kids and blah, 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 day in, day out for, say, 12 months while somebody else in the relationship is in a recovery situation from a trauma, it's not, I don't know whether we actually have that switch where we go, oh, it's time to turn off now and let him take the lead again.
Right.
You're just in it. You're just doing
it.
You
do it. You're doing it because you're on autopilot. It's like, this is what needs to be done. And this is what I have to do.
And so at some point then we have to, and I don't think it's an emasculating energy because it's not abusive.
Right.
But it does minimize the masculine presence for them. And so depending on their personality, it means they can disappear into more of their feminine. And then you get this kind of interchange of like, oh, you know, like I do everything and he doesn't do anything and blah, blah, blah. But you're actually setting up the dynamic constantly by, you know, it's like when somebody's going to buy drugs, you don't give them money because you're enabling.
Right.
So we then have to look in our relationship and say, well, what part of my behavior is enabling this to go on? And that's when the discussions are, oh, actually, that's just what he's like, and this is not for me. Or, okay, so that really was impacting him, and now he's stepped up to meet me. And that's the difference, isn't it? The divorce piece is whether the person that you're with wants to step up to meet you, or whether you just married the wrong guy. You know?
Yeah, I don't know about wrong guy, right guy. I sort of,
yeah.
You know, I feel like you make the best choice based on where you are at the particular moment. And,
yes.
And, you know, for instance, with my situation, he was a great guy. We had a lot of good times, but there came to a point, you know, the further along that we got in the relationship, where he was not stepping up and taking responsibility for himself, where he was not controlling himself. And it spilled out, you know, it was the big flood, you know, through the rest of the family. And that's why it always comes back to, how are you showing up? You know, you can still be authentic and say, you know, this frustrates me, or I'm angry about this, or I'm upset about this. But how are you taking responsibility for whether is what I'm doing helping our relationship, or is what I'm doing hurting our relationship? And if it's hurting, then what do I need to do differently?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I know for a fact I wasn't this woman in that marriage. I wasn't. And a lot of my growth has come from the pain that caused, you know?
Right.
Which is, you know, it's just the growth piece. It's the life. And I know if I was this woman now when I met him, I wouldn't have been with him.
Right.
So where I've come to now, we're so far apart. But when I met him, I loved him.
Of course.
I deeply loved him. He's the person I can say when I look back, for all the drama and all the difficulty that's ensued from it. I can say to my children, I loved your dad. I really did love him so very much. And so now, after all of the difficulty that has happened since the divorce, it's a nice place for me to go to just remember that hey, I made the right decision at the time, because I really did love him very much.
Right.
And I loved him from the place where I was at the time.
Right. Well, and especially for your kids too, because, you know, that he is a part of them.
Yes.
And so that's one of the things that, you know, I have a hard time when people talk about, oh, my ex was blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, but when you say that, you're affecting your children. You know, my kids are amazing, and they have both good qualities from him and bad qualities from him, just like they have good qualities from me and bad qualities from me, you know, and it's figuring out how to navigate all of it.
Yeah. And I do have something to add in that, which was very difficult for me. After we separated, it got really quite difficult, and it didn't go well. And I was trying to stay very, you know,
positive.
Your dad, does love you. I know that this is difficult, but just kept the narrative that their dad loved them and that, blah, blah, blah. To try and never pull the other parent down in front of them to say, your dad loves you and da 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 and all of this. To the point then that a couple of years in, when their experiences were quite difficult, I actually had a counsellor pull me up and pull me into the room after they had been talking to somebody. And this was probably 3 years into some of the difficulty. And she said, I really need you to stop telling your children positive things about their dad now, because their experience of him is not congruent with what you're saying.
Exactly.
And so what they're thinking now is that there's obviously something wrong with them,
right?
Because he does all of these things that you keep saying. And I was like, what? It just threw me completely, because I was like, now I don't know where to go with that. Because if I'm then saying, yeah, he actually behaved really badly and was a bit of an asshole, like, how can that be okay when that's their dad? But at the same time, I was actually causing insecurity and difficulty to them by not acknowledging their experience.
Right.
And I had never even considered that. I thought I was doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Which is another real drop in for any parent within the child relationship, which of course it comes down from the actual parental relationship, is that we're totally coming at it from our own experiences. So a lot of the time we make decisions on how to behave around our children based on what we would have wanted or what we missed when we were kids. Oh, well, this didn't happen for me, so I'm going to give them that. Or when I was young, I know I would have wanted this. So we come from that place, which just come from heart and beauty and, the very best. But then when we're actually looking at their experience, it's not our experience. And we need to ask the question, what do they need?
Right.
What do they need for their personality in their experience that's got absolutely nothing to do with me?
Right.
To stop my narrative, to stop my thoughts of my own kind of big noting of knowledge. Oh, well, I know this and I'm going to offer you that and I'm just going to be such a great parent in this situation. Well, no, actually, no, you're not, because you're not
validating their experience.
I wasn't just coming to them cleanly. I was coming to them with what I thought they needed, with what I'd been told to do, with this kind of dignity that I was going to behave well. And what a shock it was to me that it was actually causing damage. That was a real sideswipe. And then, of course, I had to acknowledge some of the things that were going on. And then years later, as they've got older, I feel like, oh my God, have I hurt them by telling them that it wasn't okay? And that, like, what part did I play now in the difficulty of their relationship? Should I, that question of what's my responsibility? And then you have to kind of, surrender to the whole thing and think, this was a chosen experience already, and we kind of need to let it all go and land wherever it lands for everybody. And as stuff comes up in the future, to just be available for that conversation. But
yeah, I think that's the most important part of being a parent, is showing up authentically, and trying to keep these dialogues open with your kids about, when their dad was acting like a jerk and the kids would be like, why? And I say, your dad really struggles with this, and this is not how you treat people that you love. And, ask your dad about this, ask your dad about why he does what he does, or, like trying to encourage them to have that conversation with him so that it could be healing for both them and him.
Yeah. I think it's, and we're going through this in our society a lot. I mean, I'm a single mom, so I'm growing up trying to be both parents to my children and at the same time do a job where they don't look at this woman going out every day, kind of like, oh, she's going out to the grind again for us. I don't want them to have that level of kind of guilt around me working hard to give them the life that I want for them. And I think that's important as well for that masculine feminine balance, that they see me enjoying my work and being good at it. And I remember years ago I went to a school to drop them off, and there was an event happening that I couldn't attend because I had to work.
Right.
And I had this real, like, oh my God, look at all these people being, great moms. And here I am. And this was really early on in the piece. And a lady turned to me and she said, well, maybe it's just because you're really good at what you do and you're teaching them that.
Wow.
And I went, oh, yes.
Thank you.
Let me love you, I said to her.
Thank you for validating me.
Yeah. And I just thought, all of these things that we bring to our relationships and to our children, they are totally unique to us. And and that's the thing, isn't it, about all our relationships? They're so unique to us, and we bring in all of our insecurities and our vulnerabilities. And how can anybody know what to do with us, because they've never met anybody quite like us before?
Right.
Us with them, we've never met them before, because we go on about how fabulously unique we are, and then we're kind of almost trying to put everybody in the same box, and it can't happen.
So what's the difference? Do you think that there's a difference with the way that you're raising your sons and your daughters?
Oh God, yeah.
How?
I mean, Australia is a very, very lucky country. It's a beautiful place to raise children. I think really one of the things I keep looking at is the gratitude piece, really, as well, to say, yeah, you do have a great life. And so it's about being really grounded in what's real and what's not real, and the materialism that we're around. And there's a lot, very, very different environment now to when I was growing up, just with technology and media alone. I mean, I trained in the typing pool on an old school, like, kind of push
typewriter.
Like you pressed along the thing like the good old 9 to 5 with Dolly Parton. That was me.
Where you had to press those keys really hard.
Yeah. And I learned how to type blindfolded.
Oh my gosh.
Touch type, so we'd know exactly where the keys were, because he used to have to type onto a carbon paper, so you had to be accurate.
Wow.
So anyway, we digress. But yeah, so I talk about feelings in my house. I talk about feelings, and I've got better at it as I've got older, and I've had more children. Not expecting them to be happy all the time, and especially my girls. So much pressure on girls to
smile, be pretty. Yeah.
Yeah. And you're so beautiful. No, like, I do tell my children they're beautiful, of course, but I tell all 4 of them they're beautiful.
Right.
And when I say you're gorgeous, I mean their insides, and I tell them they're clever, and that they make me happy, and that
I tell them they make me laugh.
Yeah. All these beautiful things, like, my love language is words of affirmation. So that's what I offer, as well as that's what I need to receive. And the other, my secondary one, sorry about that, Dawn. My secondary love language is acts of service. So I like to do things for them, and hug them, and make sure that they've got everything they need.
And what are their love languages?
Well, definitely, I think my son is fun. He's playful, and I'm not sure exactly what their love languages are, but I know how they receive it. So I think all of them. My young daughter, I have twins age 6, and my 6-year-old, she's a words of affirmation person and a physical touch person. She wants to be held, and you to tell her that you love her, definitely. My son seems to be, my little son, 6-year-old, he seems to be acts of service person, because he's always the one who'll save somebody. Like he'll say, this happened and I did this for them,
Oh, that's sweet.
and I looked after that for them, and I think, yeah. Whereas my daughter, my 15-year-old, she's an incredible listener. She just holds space. Quite extraordinary for her age. So, and she just observes, and then she'll just come out with some wisdom that blows my mind. But I think the biggest takeaway is that I let them have their feelings. I go, yeah, that must be awful, or
Right.
not just, oh well, you've got to do this and blah blah blah. And I just go, yeah, that does feel funny, yeah.
Or
And
yes,
just,
that sucks.
yeah, that's right, yeah. So, and yeah, just allowing them to be wherever they are and not pushing them to be anything particular. And another thing I put concentration on is, when you get out into the world, you've probably not even found yet what your gift is,
Right.
you know,
Right.
because we don't use our gifts in school. We learn the basics.
Right.
If you're a gifted academic, then you will find it in school. But most things that we are really gifted in, we don't even know we have. So
Right.
please just do your days, enjoy your friends, and do your best, because for sure, that's not everything about how you're going to show up on the planet. This is not everything you have.
Right. Yeah. I always try to help my kids. Yeah. First honor whatever they're feeling. And this is one of the sayings that I would tell them, like, because there were times in their lives that they have been not very nice at all for long periods of time. And I would say, I love you and I will always have your back. But right now, I just really don't like you and I don't want to
Yeah.
hang around with you. And that's okay,
Yeah.
but to accept wherever they are and say, when you're ready to come out and speak respectfully and have a conversation, then I'm here ready, available for you. And so that you give people permission to just accept wherever they are.
Yeah.
It's a really beautiful gift to give somebody, as well as a beautiful gift to give yourself.
And honesty. Yeah. Honesty is key for me. That's one of my big values. And so when the kids were little, it was like, tell me whatever's happened, even if you're in trouble.
Right.
And I can guarantee you won't be in trouble if you tell me.
Right.
And so they've told me things that have been, when they've been little, I'm like, oh my God, I should kill you for that. Like, seriously. But I've never, ever acted like that. I've never reacted. I've always gone, wow, that's not so good. But the fact that you told me that, I'm so sorry, Dawn. Some strange animals just come into the garden. But yeah, so yeah, I just think when you go to them then and you say, well, we're not going to do that. We're not going to react to that honesty. I'm going to let you have that without hurting you and without making you feel bad or shaming.
Right.
And I have found that as they become teenagers, they tell me everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is a gorgeous relationship then,
It is. I feel very blessed too, because I have the same relationship with my kids. They don't tell me everything, some things they reserve for their friends, but pretty much I know the big ones, the big things that are going on. And it's really, I hope, that it will help us continue to develop this beautiful, loving, relationship into the future as they become adults and as they have similar struggles of identity or feelings of insecurity or, whatever they're navigating in life, that they know that they can be who they are. I know that authenticity is really important to you.
Definitely. And that in that way as well, they see us in our vulnerability, because I'll get home and I'll say, you know, I've actually had a really tough day and this happened,
Yeah.
made me feel like this.
Yeah.
So that then, you know, they will have that emotion and go, oh yeah, I've seen this played out and it's
Right.
okay.
Right.
And times when I feel like I've behaved badly as a parent, I've had to go to the kids and say, you know, I'm not proud of how I behaved there, you know,
Exactly.
and it would be remiss of me to tell you that this always goes well, because it really doesn't,
Right.
you know, and sometimes it looks like this. So that when my daughters grow up, for example, and they're a working mom or they're navigating whatever it is they're navigating, they know that it's not hysterical to get upset about something, that it's not
Right.
an over emotional response. It's okay. It's an
Yeah.
emotion.
Yeah.
And if somebody can't handle that emotion, that's actually their projection.
Right.
You have to be able to show up as you are. And it's not all smiling. It has to
Right.
be authentic and true. And sometimes those moments are deep. They're vulnerable. Sometimes they're sad. Sometimes they're, yeah, there needs to be a conversation. And yeah, I think it's nice to model that,
Yeah.
for the relationships with men as well.
Yeah, I know I've cried a million times in front of my kids, and for the boys especially, to say, yeah, this is really hard. This is really painful. This is really tough. And I can be crying 1 minute and 5 minutes later I'll be laughing and to say,
Yeah,
you know what, you can hold space for both of these simultaneously. It's not
yeah,
either or.
yeah,
It's just having this human experience, and whatever it is, it's okay.
yeah, yeah. That's right. Yeah, I think that's really valuable. And in my relationships with men, I speak out why something affects me the way it does, why I feel about something the way I feel about something. I think it's very it's kind of mean to expect somebody to just know why,
Right.
because we've by the time we meet somebody, there's already 25 chapters before them, you know.
Right. Yeah.
They're not going to kind of, like, I love that saying, you can't pick up the book at page 370 and think you know me, you know.
I've never heard that, but I love
Yeah,
that.
I love that, you know, because you can't. And
Right.
it's our responsibility to introduce ourselves wholly to our partner,
Yeah.
and to say, this is the woman you're getting. And then as things come up, own your part in the discontent.
Yes.
And then you make decisions based around that as to whether it's going to work or not, you know.
Right.
And
Right. As long
said
as
by a woman who's a lot older and has more experience.
well, but you want somebody to show up in the same way,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
Ideally, definitely. And I think that there's people looking for that too. You know,
Yes.
lots of people going, oh my God, please give me that, because right now I do not know how to navigate a woman. All this divine feminine rising, and all I'm feeling is aggression, and it's too masculine. We're coming at them with too much of our masculine, and that's very, very difficult for them to show up to. A lot of really strong, amazing women that I know are attracting men who are of a weaker personality than theirs. And that's not saying they're weak, it's saying that they don't have that same level of showing up that that of the woman that they've been attracted to. And so then the more powerful woman is kind of complaining that this guy's not strong enough, or he doesn't this, he doesn't do that. And I think that is the counterbalance. When you're balanced in yourself, you meet somebody who's balanced. When
Right.
you're more masculine, you pull somebody who's more feminine.
Right.
When you're more feminine, you pull somebody who's more masculine. So you get women who are quite mousy and a little bit more timid and a bit too feminine, and they have really quite powerful partners. And if that's the balance that they're looking for, because they've got no intention of, you know, moving more into masculine, that's the perfection of that.
Right.
But it depends on what you're looking for. But it either has to balance you because you don't want to balance you, or you have to balance yourself, and
Exactly.
find somebody else who's equally as balanced, you know. Um, because I think the masculine, feminine, it really is a scale.
Right.
Uh, so yeah, that's my thought.
Yeah, I completely agree with that because I think that we have, equal amounts of both. And like I was talking about, sort of that ebb and flow between, depending on what circumstance you're in. But when you can own fully and embrace and embody both sides of yourself, you come to your partner in a more whole way. That there aren't parts of you that you're trying to hide or suppress or whatever. You're fully owning all of yourself. And it's all of your heart, it's all of your soul, it's all of your mind, it's all of your body. It's like that acceptance that you give yourself because you're embracing all of you. What a beautiful gift to give somebody.
Yeah, yeah,
and i
absolutely.
and I, that's what I would like. I've been working really hard at trying to find my balance, as you have, as you have too. And so I think that we're going to find somebody that meets us in that way, because of what we experienced in the past. We're not going to accept anything less than that.
Mm, mm. Yeah, yeah. And equally, you're looking for somebody who has gone through their relationships and grown also,
Right.
and said, well, actually, I found out this about myself that I had
Right.
no idea. I was walking around in my masculine ego in my 20s, and I probably behaved well in that relationship. I didn't behave well in that relationship either.
Right. Right.
Now I know this about myself. Now I know what I'm looking for. So you need, if you're, this is the thing, whatever you are, you need to get that mirrored back.
Right.
So, so if I'm looking for somebody to support me because I don't want to be in that space of running things, then I do want somebody who's in their full masculine and has a less of a feminine space. And that to me is ideal. Or it might be that, like, actually I love being that corporate high flyer. I don't want anybody who's competing with me. I want somebody who's just going to kind of come in and fill that kind of space of softness, that they bring the softness to the relationship. And other people are meeting in other ways. And in our society, there should be room for all of these decisions and all of
Right.
types of relationships.
Right.
And shouldn't be out there judging, oh, she wears the pants, he doesn't, she's this, he's that, he's abusive, you don't know what they're actually showing up to each other with, and saying, oh God, I'm so grateful that you're filling that role, because I just
Right.
want to be in that space.
Right.
And to the outside eye, it could be terrible. But if it's not, I mean, obviously there's the times when there's abuse in either area, that, either the woman is emasculating the man, or the man, there's a domestic violence scene where, that's not okay. Again, the extremes of everything.
Right.
But yeah, we need to just come to the table with what we have, really. And then hopefully we'll get met in that space by somebody who really understands what we're talking about.
Well, and the thing too, I think as you evolve, as you go through your own personal growth and transformation, that you have someone that supports you in your own growth, because you could vacillate between the two. I want to be taken care of, or I want to, go out and do. And so, because each person shows up differently every single day, it's about waking up and saying, oh, how are you going to show up today? What are you needing today? And really trying to navigate. It's not like you ever really solve it. It's more like you just navigate how each other shows up. And as long as you're trying to be loving and supportive and, compassionate and caring, and, working towards the betterment.
Isn't it? That's the security. I think that
Yeah.
comes from the security. If you're showing up secure,
Right.
and connected,
Right.
that's the safety. It's a safety, security, connection piece.
Yeah.
And that comes from maturity, I think.
Right.
a lot of personal growth. It doesn't necessarily come with maturity for somebody who hasn't done the growth to find the security. So that's probably
Yeah.
not correct. But yeah, I think for me, it's the security. When I'm fully connected, I don't have to worry. And so there's a safety, so there's a softness in that for me. Like there's this, oh my God, thank God I've got a place to fall.
Right.
I'm so strong.
Right.
That's something that's beautiful for me. And so that's important. Whereas Facebook and all this external projection of like how vulnerable we are online, we're actually looking for attention and approval. There's no connectedness there so much. We're all connected online, but we're not connected in our hearts. So we post something and there's that constant look to see whether we've been approved of.
Right.
If we were saying that to a partner we were connected with, we're not looking for their approval. We know they've got us.
Right. Exactly. And that's what I want. I want to know that my partner has got me.
Yeah. Yeah. And they don't need to approve of us, but
No.
we're still safe.
Right. Right. Like I want to be the safe place for my partner, and I want my partner to be the safe place for me.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. So
In our world.
in our world, we can co-create whatever world we want.
Right. That's right. Yeah.
So my last question is, how do you define real love?
Oh, I want to look at somebody who has just this silent smile on their face, just watching me do my day. Like that, just I can show up however I am and feel secure. True love for me is not, it has no condition. It's unconditional, but to an extreme. There's a softness in it. There's a beauty in it. It's sensual. It's deep, and they trust you to manage your own feelings and emotions because they know who you are. So I suppose true love defined to me is somebody having complete and total belief in me. And because of their belief in me, it's so true and so visible to me that I have complete and total belief in them and in my place in that relationship. In a completely, and it's an unconditional space.
Beautiful. I wish that for you.
Thank you, darling.
And I'm sure, for you. And I'm sure there are going to be plenty of possibilities as well.
Fingers crossed, hey?
So for our listeners, if anybody wants to get in touch with you, Helen, to find out more about your work and your podcast, where can they find you?
Well, the Modern Masculine podcast is on iTunes, on Google Play, Sketcher, and a number of different podcasting places. I'd love people to hop on and subscribe. It's really quite important work. And to talk to me about coaching or mentoring or any kind of authenticity speaking, you can contact me through helenglover.com.au.
Perfect. And I will go ahead and post that underneath the link for the podcast as well. And if you like what you hear, please subscribe and share with your friends. And if you would like support in finding more connection, expansion, freedom, and acceptance in your relationships, you can find me on Facebook or Instagram at The Awakening with Dawn. Feel free to send me a message and I'd be happy to help you find and create more real love in your life. And as Helen and I were talking about, this point of really taking care of your own stuff, being in your heart, being authentic, showing up connected, doing your own work. I just want to remind people that the most important relationship you'll ever have is the one you have with yourself, so that you can be the kind of partner that you want to have. So thank you so much for joining me, Helen. It's been a total honor and pleasure, and I hope to have you back many, many more times.
Thank you.
All right. So that's it for now. Thanks you guys for listening, and I'll see you next time. Take care. Bye.